Hello again, everyone. We're doing the Daily Six series live with my co-host and author of the Daily Six. Just so happens we double it. Ron Chapelier and our special guest, Nicole Heimann. Nicole, I'm so glad that you were able to come on today because what you're doing out in the world is fabulous. And this is going to be a great conversation.
Thank you so much, Terry. I'm delighted to be here. And the topic in John's book is, one very close to my heart. So very happy to be here next to both of you.
Good, good. John has a few things to say about service to others. So I'm going to be quiet for a moment and let him hop in. John?
Thanks, Terry. It's to me, this was one of those counterintuitive things because when I first started working in business and I through college and graduate school and all these other things and starting out in business, the focus was always on me getting ahead. Me accumulating wealth, me building businesses, me. And the downside of that is, of course, it left me with a divorce, a couple of kids that couldn't stand me, selling a house and having to find a new place to live, and all these kinds of things that came along with living a life focused on me. I was still being invited to all the good parties and invited to all the good events in Washington, D.C., where I grew up. But I would end up going back to a hotel where I lived quite alone by myself. And so it was, looked good on the outside, but not too much on the inside. A friend of mine referred to that as a dressed up trash can. And I thought that was a little hurtful, but, I understood what he meant. I have a nice suit and a nice car and all this other stuff, and inside is just nothing. So for me, it was, how do I change that? Because that was the whole purpose of the Daily Sixes. I'm living this kind of a life. How do I stop living this kind of a life? And once I became willing, which is step number one, and I set some meditation for myself on a daily basis to set my mind and my heart in the right direction, the direction that it naturally led me to was service, some sort of service to others. It doesn't have to be big. I mean, when I was in Washington running a large company, we got together with about, 500 or 600 other companies through the Board of Trade there and bought computers for the kids in the DC city schools. That was a wonderful program, and it was very helpful to the kids, and I felt good about it. But, that's not all you can do to be of service. I've learned that if somebody's in the restaurant, they have a little name tag on, it's nice to call them by their name rather than just going, "Hey, could you come here a second?" Kind of thing. Or if somebody's in a retail store and they have a little name tag on it, it takes no real work to be of service. It just takes a focus of service. And I find when you're focused on being of service to people, it's amazing how situations show up. I've got my neighborhood now is completely flipped out about this crazy guy who lives up the street because there's a neighbor next door who's disabled and a woman across the street who is just really elderly and can't do any work. So I mowed their yards for them. I have a riding mower. It wasn't as if I went out and sweated to myself to death. It took about 20 minutes per lawn or 30 minutes per lawn. And we must have had 10 people come up and go, "What's John? Is John okay? Is it, what's it about?" And Susan said, "It just makes him feel better to do this." And, I have found that when my focus is not here, but here, it makes all the difference in the world as far as sleeping peacefully and living peacefully. I'm not trying to conjure up some sort of feeling that doesn't exist, because it does exist, because my behavior reflects the way I feel in here. So that's a very long diatribe, I apologize, on service, but service is really important to me. It really helped me change my focus and the way I live.
Excellent, excellent. For those of you on LinkedIn, I see there was a blip signing on. So, if you want to hear the first minute or so of us saying hi to Nicole, you can certainly do through my Facebook page or my YouTube page, but it's not a problem. Nicole Heimann is our special guest today. We even have a name for her. There we go. And we're talking about service to others today and the importance of it, along with its chapter in John's book, The Daily Six, award-winning book. And I just wanted to bring you up to speed for those of you who signed on to LinkedIn Live. That's the fun of live. We can't go back and change it. So yes, service to others is presence. I talk about presence as a point where manifestation becomes action. That John, you were talking about the server at a restaurant could be having the worst day of her life. Her kids are sick at home. She can't be there because she's a single mom. She's got to get the paycheck. That's just non-negotiable. And you give her a smile and you call her by her name. All of a sudden, she has validity in the world. And that's so important. And, Nicole, I'm going to place you on another continent here for a moment because you do wonderful work in South America. Can you talk about that for a moment? Because I just so admire the work you and your husband are doing out there.
Please.
Yeah. So through the work with our foundation, we are supporting all the work of the First Nation leaders in the Amazon Sacred Headwaters region in Ecuador and Peru to build a living school of the Amazon. And why? Because 5% of the population is indigenous, and they take care of 80% of our biodiversity in the whole world. So 5% takes care of 80% of the biodiversity. That means they are doing the work for all of us, because without this biodiversity staying intact or protecting it, we won't survive.
Right.
This is about survival of our species, of nature, of Mother Earth. And the least we can do with these 5% of people is to stand in solidarity with them. And so what I experienced, John, as you were talking, and you were talking about this huge shift from me, no longer to focus on me, but on others, I think it frees us from the obsession with our own identity. It's it totally liberates us from the identity that we want to create with material stuff, with the big villa and the fast car and the job title and all of these external things. And that is a very special kind of freedom to experience once you can lean into that. And the other element that you spoke about was the respect and the dignity. You gave the example of the lady in service. Give her a smile, and this is also something that I experience in working together with the beautiful indigenous communities. They know what they need. None of us, when we are building the school, we are not bringing in our ideas from the West, because honestly, we've been doing a lot wrong. So we trust them. It's all based on indigenous pedagogy. It's all based on the elders transferring their wisdom to the next generations in a more in not even in a better way, but in a way that amplifies, that we can reach more people, more leaders, because the best protection for the Amazon comes from within. And what I've learned through this work is each time, I mean, as a board member, we are not paid. So all the work and the energy we give into this is on a voluntary basis. And we put in a lot of time. And why? Because it's completely selfless. It is for something that is truly bigger than ourselves. It also goes beyond the indigenous communities. It is a project for the world. And each time I spend time on this and I work for this project, I experience a depth of fulfillment that I cannot describe. that I cannot describe, honestly. And so it is by giving that we get so much back.
Yes.
And I never ever asked myself the question, what do I get out of this? Or I
No.
never started this to get something.
Right.
And this is true for the foundation, but also for my coaching business. I've always been focused on what can I give. And this focus has given me a lot back, and also things that I did not go after or did not expect.
All right.
Um,
That's great. I mean, that's the indigenous issues that your foundation is dealing with are truly, world shaking. I mean, they really are. I mean, I remember Brazil came up with an idea once where the rest of the countries would pay them for the oxygen that they produce. Instead of having to chop down the trees, they would have to keep the trees and they would provide the oxygen for the world. And I thought,
okay.
well, that's a really good idea. Why doesn't somebody do that? Rather than just keep chopping these trees down
Yeah.
so we can make more room for industrial development. Another one of these common sense things that doesn't seem to ever go anywhere. But the idea of service to me has always been this idea of putting in rather than getting out. And that's, again, diametrically opposed to the things I learned in business school and the things I learned running companies was,
Yes.
I have to protect me and keep myself safe from possibly getting pulled into other issues or challenges. So the only way to do that is keep myself disconnected rather than connected.
Yeah.
And so then you have deniability. It's like, well, I didn't do that, kind of thing. So, and it really is interesting when you change that and you begin to think about what's in it from me instead of what's in it for me.
Absolutely.
It's, what am I putting into the relationships of my life? I mean, I look back at my wife and my kids when I was building a business that was very successful. I was a terrible parent and husband, terrible. I mean, I there's no doubt about it. And if you ask my kids today, they'd be happy to explain it to you. Still after, I don't know, 35 years, much of the issues associated with that are still very clear in their minds. So, it's taken years for me to sort of rebuild and reassemble the life I had before I went into business, when it was more relaxed and more fun and life was more in balance. And so that's the thing for me. I think success is one thing, but when you practice service, it allows you to develop a sense of significance.
Yeah.
What I'm doing is significant. And therefore, I've helped move things forward on some level at some small step, moving things in the right direction. And I know that it's hard for people to understand that because there's just no way to explain it. You have to actually do it and then realize that the sense that you feel is amazing. I've said before, success and significance are the most addictive drugs in the world. Once you finally experience true sense of success or a true sense of significance, that's a feeling you want to have back again and again and again. And so just my key is get somebody started on the path and they will self-motivate. It doesn't take a lot. Just once, like I think Linda said to me that you're taking CEOs to the
Yes.
Amazon region. And I guarantee you those people are coming out with a completely different perspective. We haven't talked about that, but you can change me if I'm
They
wrong.
do.
I'll bet you I'm not. I'll bet you they're exactly diametrically opposed to the way they were thinking before they showed up.
Absolutely. Yeah. And also it's about, what you said about, well, first of all, I want to acknowledge you for going through this deep transformation and that huge shift in your life. From what you described, this was huge. And you're a beautiful role model for many people out there that may recognize themselves in you,
Oh,
you know.
thank you.
So thank you for sharing that.
Yeah,
And this,
absolutely. I really reflect that same thing, mirror that.
yeah.
Yeah, very good. You were saying, go ahead, Nicole.
Yeah, and the same goes like when we are focused on ourselves all the time.
Mm.
in our businesses, we are focused on our companies. And most of the time, when it comes to resources, we are depleting Mother Earth. We are taking from her. We are getting what we want to get. But when you start to ask yourself the question, well, what is the cost that I'm creating? What is the damage that I'm creating? Then my question is this successful image on paper really so successful?
Right.
And the second question is, how can we give back to
Right.
Mother Earth to create balance?
Right.
I'm not naive. I don't think we can shift everything overnight. Won't happen. But we can start to think about, how can I create balance? How can we start giving back and not only taking?
Yes. Now, the only way that I've learned is your example is a great one, which is to expose people to the value of the changes. I mean, service is one of 6. The other ones are love and forgiveness, gratitude, willingness, quiet time, these kinds of things. And I can't explain meditation to somebody unless they want to try it and sit quietly and overcome their brains yakking at them constantly. I don't have time for this. I don't have time for, until the brain quiets down a little bit. And all of a sudden, things change. And when you begin to create a sense of service, or you begin to act with a sense of gratitude, then you begin to realize the value and the joy associated with that. I mean, you're talking about balance, and to me, that's the whole purpose of the Daily 6, is to help someone create the balance between, this crazy go kind of world we've got, and something else that helps replenish us and nurture us. Because, my old days where you work until whatever, and then you go play tennis for a couple of hours, and you go out and drink with some friends, and then maybe you get home in time to have dinner with your family, or probably not. So, it was all like, well, I'm doing this for my business, and I'm doing this to generate more interest in my business, and I'm going out here and entertaining clients with my business. And it's just a constant gerbil wheel of success that really doesn't do much other than keep spinning and spinning. And so to change that, I mean, it's not as if I just sat down one day and went, I just want to be a better person. What happened to me, and I mentioned it in the book, was I had one of the businesses that I started crashed and burned, and I had to sort of start over again. And I thought, let's do this on a different set of principles, because the last one cost me a marriage and kids and all sorts of things.
Yeah.
And that's kind of where the Daily 6 evolved from, was this new set of principles. Instead of me focused, it became other focused. And then what do I do on a daily basis to remind me? I mean, because we all set great intentions. Every day we set intentions. And by afternoon, it's kind of like, am I still paying attention to that intention I had this morning? Because I don't think I am. I started out being forgiving, and I'm really upset with this person. So
Yeah.
we have to find a way to keep these intentions fresh in our minds. And one of the things that I found is that if I can help people create them, they begin to remember them. But if we just react to every day rather than plan how to go into it, or set a good intention that we can set a path to follow, and it can kind of go anywhere we want. We have to intentionally live this kind of service-focused life. It requires us to see things differently than others do.
Definitely.
Absolutely.
Terry, what do you
Absolutely. And I can speak, ladies and gentlemen. It's just okay. These two are going at it really nicely. But it brings to mind, I get emails every morning from the New York Times from various columnists there. And ladies and gentlemen, the specifics of the name and the city and everything is missing right now. But I'm going to look it up and put it in the comments so that you can go read about this person. This young man overthrew the old regime of a city. And the first thing he asked was the operations department. He says, I want to make downtown walk only. How fast can we get this done? And their operations department said, 3 to 6 months. He said, okay, sounds good. You have 48 hours. Right? And they did it.
Yeah.
Okay. But it gets better, ladies and gentlemen. He reached out to the sections of the city that were in squalor and poverty and almost 100% unemployment and all that stuff. And he told them all, I'm going to give you free food. All you want, free food. But you have to recycle 100% of what you use. It has to be recycled. So it started out, they're recycling the food and that kind of stuff. And now all of a sudden, they're cleaning up the streets. They're doing this, they're doing that, because they have something to hold on to.
Right.
Their pride as a human being is starting to come back. And the leader of the city is taking the lead on that. And bravo for that. And I'll put that information in the comments because it's that important. You know, we are all born with love. We don't come out of the womb saying, you're poor, I don't like you. You're black, I don't like you. You're from South America, I don't like you. They don't have any concept of that.
Right.
They learned it. Okay.
Right.
And anything in the human mind, it's been proven time and time again, the human mind can relearn or unlearn bad habits and learn new ones. So, ladies and gentlemen, there is hope for all of us, okay? Because we are emotion-based units.
Yes.
And that means we're going to have bad days. It's going to happen. You know, if you had been around my office yesterday, it was one of those bad days. It took a lot of stops along the day for me to just kick back and go, okay, calm down, take an interior 30-second meditation and get rid of this because it's going to go away anyway. All right.
Right.
But that's life. That's the way things go. We started this live for you guys at LinkedIn. You missed the first minute and a half. Well, that's live. Can't change it. So let's move on. Let's enjoy it. And what, in service to others, you know, when you go from a point of measurable service, you've missed the point. When you give, like Nicole, you and your husband give in the Amazon, there isn't anything measurable down there. It's completely from the heart and the soul. And they get it, and they give it to others, and they give it to others, and it continues to expand. And that's such a beautiful thing. John?
Well, what just popped into my head, Terry, was when the company back in 91 sort of crashed and burned, and I eventually started another business, which was, very successful. I assumed my life was over and everything was going to get burned down and I was going to live in a box on a street. And of course, none of that happened. And all the kids went to college and everybody did fine. But it was a situation that I thought was imminent disaster because, if you're living according to material life, when things happen in the material life, it comes right up here in your face and you can't see anything else. When you're trying to balance that with a sense of significance or a sense of spiritual life, that keeps your eyes open, and it keeps you realizing that there are other good things that are going on, and life is not all about what happens to me. It's happening to other people too. And so the thing that I found that's best effect for me to stop worrying about stuff like you were having a bad day yesterday, is to reach out and go help somebody. I drive over to the grocery store and pick up a couple of things and then push 3 or 4 shopping carts back and get them out of the parking lot. Just something silly, but doing something that is not my focus, is helpful for me. And the other thing that popped up in my head when you were talking is after I started this next company, which was a service company and a brokerage company. And so I didn't have to worry about all the employees. I had a lot more time. I went to a workshop called Working from the Heart. I don't think I've told you or Linda about this, but it was called Working from the Heart. I don't even know if it's still in business or not, because this was, 30 years ago. But what their basic tenet was, love to do the most. What was the most fun you ever had working? What was it? And what is most important to you in your life now? And to find something that you could combine those things, and develop a new career. And so what that did was it put me on this Daily 6 path. And then I built that up over a period of about 6 or 7 years while I was running this company, so that when I sold this company, I was ready to start marketing and working in the concepts around the Daily 6. But if it hadn't been for that, I think I would have just stayed in the same gerbil wheel. I didn't. You can't learn new lessons if you don't find new teachers. If you're just living, I can't fix this with this. I have to find something else to stick in here so I can begin to learn some new lessons and come up with some new answers. And when I did that, it was astounding how, when I'm not the center of the universe, how much more peaceful and joyful the universe can become.
Yeah, absolutely. I was fortunate enough to learn my service to others at a very young age. About the middle of last century, I'm pretty old. About the middle of last century, when I was little, there was no power doors on grocery stores and those kinds of things. You had to open them and close them. Okay. They had the auto close arm on them, but you still had to open them. My mom and dad showed me how to be a good person. Unconsciously, they would open the door for people and let them go ahead of them, and I patterned from that. Well, that's what I'm supposed to do. Hello, lady, let me get that for you. You go ahead on. And
Yep.
I'm going to get in there anyway. I'm going to do my thing. And that unconscious behavior, now at 70 years old, is still there. Power doors or none, or somebody's coming in and they've got a bunch of kids in tow, they're going ahead of me no matter what.
Right.
Okay. Because they have a lot of extra things to do other than shop or whatever it is that the building that they're at. And it's not that hard, ladies and gentlemen, to be conscious and present about people around you. Right. And yes, service to others could include the International Red Cross for you guys that are overseas, American Red Cross over here. Yeah, those are the big picture stuff, and they do need help. But just reaching out and open a door for somebody or smiling at somebody as you pass them on the street, that's service to them. That validates that otherwise terrible day they're having and could change a life forever.
Right.
So those are my 2 cents for today. We're getting towards the end of the deal, and I want to hear more from Nicole. Nicole, do you have some final thoughts about service to others today? This is fabulous.
Yes. John, when you said, if I'm not the center of the universe and we focus it on others, things change. And I would like to take that a step further, because I think we in our world have been brought up with that we are the center of the universe, right?
Absolutely.
If we take the image of our brain and we imagine us as a human, everything turns around us. Right?
Sure.
Now, if we think back of the story of creation, I think humans came last.
Yes.
I'm not mistaken, right? So if they came last, why don't we replace this human in the middle of our brain with Mother Earth?
Right.
And when all the decisions we start to take do not serve those humans that came last or ourselves,
right,
but that we are part of this whole nature, that we start thinking of serving the whole. That would be my big wish for humanity, because I believe that's the only way forward, that we can make a big change in the world. Yeah.
I agree with that. And what I think my project is to get people awakened to the concept of what you're doing. I mean, a selfish person is not going to sign up for your program.
No.
So it's like, okay, so how do I take a whole bunch of people who are focused this way and help them change their focus outward, so that when they hear something like your program, they go, oh my gosh, I've got to be a part of that.
Yeah. It's really from ego to ego.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I call it hubris to humanity.
Yes.
So it's just sort of cracking this shell of hubris and looking out and saying, there's something I can do here that doesn't directly benefit me. Because if it's just benefiting me, then I'm probably on the wrong path.
Yep.
And so it's really helpful. You were talking about big and small things, and one of the things that I forgot to mention earlier that I tell people in workshops is hold the elevator door for someone. You step in an elevator and everybody pushes their floor really fast, and then they push the closed door button a lot, to get the door to close fast because they got to go somewhere fast. So the idea is just hold the door and look around outside and see if anybody's running for the elevator. It's amazing how that can be. And when I do that, firstly in a hotel, that all the attendees go out and start going up and down elevators and holding elevators for people. It's hysterical. But it is, if you give people simple little steps like that, it's amazing how come back a year later and see what a change these small changes have made. So I'm just trying to make that impact and awaken people
Wonderful.
to something like yours, you know.
Yeah.
Terry, you want to close this out?
Absolutely. Ladies and gentlemen, this is the Daily Six series about the book. My co-host, John Chapelier, and our very special guest, Nicole Heimann. Thank you so much for being here. I knew this was going to be a fabulous conversation, both by subject matter and our esteemed guest. And ladies and gentlemen, thank you for hopping in. And I will, for those of you who've been listening, I will find that information about that new mayor and what he's doing to make a change in his city. So that's us for now, and that's for this week. Thanks for listening in. Do leave your comments. We do want to hear from you, and we will answer them. Thank you very much.